Hi.
Hi, this is Katie Proctor, the owner of Books with Pictures here in Portland, Oregon.
And this is comics writer and critic Douglas Wolk.
And we have a couple comics that came out this week that we're super excited about and want to tell you about. First up is this one, Flavor Number 1 by Joseph Keatinge and Wolk Jin Clark.
So Flavor is a adorable cooking adventure comic with a dog sidekick.
Yeah, it's kind of a fantasy thing. It's kind of a culinary thing. There's lots of food lore and food thought and just it's all about food and cooking and the culture around food and the magic of making and eating things.
Yeah, and in fact includes Ali Bouzari as its culinary consultant, who is here to make sure that the characterizations around food and eating are just telling the story the best that they can tell the story.
And there's a little interview with him at the back by Joe Keatinge that's really, really interesting. And there's a lot of thought and a lot of world building that went into this comic. If you read Joseph Keatinge's earlier comic Shudder, it did the same sort of like, we're just going to throw a whole lot of world building at you, but there's so much thought behind it.
So it's got a very Miyazaki vibe. If you are a fan of Miyazaki movies, this is definitely a comic to pick up. If you loved Shudder, this is definitely a comic to pick up. This is brand new, number 1 this week, and it is just beautifully drawn, beautifully covered by Tamra Bonvillain, lettered by Ariana Maher, who does a wonderful job. There is so much just really evident collaboration and so much just beautiful, goofy, fun, family adventure story.
It's really smart and it's really original, and I don't know that I've really read anything that kind of goes into this territory before, which is a lovely thing.
It's rated Teen Plus, I would say, so far, 11 and up, but I don't know where it's going, so.
Could go anywhere. Other thing this week is The Mighty Thor at the Gates of Valhalla. This is a one-shot written by Jason Aaron and drawn by Jen Bartel and Ramón Pérez. It's kind of bridging the gap between the end of the Thor series that just more or less concluded with the kind of death of Jane Foster and what is to come.
So if you were reading along in that series, this is an excellent one to pick up. It's an epilogue. It is a winding down of that Jane Thor arc, and then some teasers for the continuing of the War of the Realms, which didn't wrap up with the Jane Thor story at all, really. I would say if you were reading that arc, definitely pick this up. It's billed as a one-shot, but it's really the kicker to that story. Also, if you want to start picking up the next arc, this does a really nice job of sort of narratively filling in what the hell just happened.
Yeah, I love it when long-running serial comics like this do an issue along these lines that sort of sums up where it's been and also sets up a whole lot of stuff that's to come. There are a bunch of teasers for stuff that we're probably going to be seeing in the next year or 2 years of Thor and Avengers and lots of other stuff that Jason Aaron is involved with.
Yeah, I mean, he bills it for us here. He says, to be continued in next month's Thor number 1, which is the return of Odinson as Thor, and next year's War of the Realms. Now, it's only May.
Yeah.
So billing this story will pick up again in a year it's a pretty bold move. So
yeah, there's some stuff that connects to what he's been doing in Avengers, and there's also very interesting teaser having to do with my personal idol, The Void.
I would also say if you are a lover of Jen Bartel's artwork, like me, she gets to draw some of the best ass-kicking sparkle girls ever in these granddaughters of Thor, who are they're beautiful, and they are so they're characters who were introduced way back early on in the God Butcher arc, but they are just so beautifully conceptualized by her here, and I think you'll love it.
Yeah, it's really fun, and it really felt like Jason Aaron's big Thor story was kind of coming to an end with the end of the Jane arc, and it's totally not.
Nope.
There's a bunch more, and he's been setting it up for a long time, and it's going to be coming for a while.
So pick up the next Thor next month and see where it goes.
And we'll see you soon.